we haven't forgotten about this series. Well, today, a new episode of War in the Box arrives for all of you. For those who don't know what we're talking about, in collaboration with our friends from In the Paddock, we launched a mini-series where we tell you the story of fierce battles within the different Formula One teams. The first chapter featured the thrilling duel between Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez of Mexico. The pink duel occurred in the 2017 and 2018 seasons. On this occasion, we must discuss the duel that immediately followed. But now the intimate enemies would be in an Italian trench. We already talked about the Rose War, and now we have to talk about the Red War. The battle for leadership in a mythical team led Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel to self-destruction, dishonor, and above all, empty hands. Before we start, I remind you that you will find the first part here and the second part on the channel of our friends in the paddock. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second chapter of War in the Box. Sebastian Vettel versus Charles Leclerc. The Pink Squad and the Prancing Horse, the most successful and decorated team in F1 history. A legendary team that is undoubtedly one of the most passionate in the Grand Circus world. However, they have gone many years without tasting the sweetness of success in any championship. Ferrari last won the Drivers' Championship in 2007 with Kimi Räikkönen. The last time they achieved the same in the Constructors' Championship was in 2008. It's been 14 years since Ferrari was last known as a championship-winning team. This war in the pit has its precedent in 2015. Given that after several years without being able to return to the top, and after several years failing in their attempt to become champions again, in 2014 they decided to start an internal restructuring to become glory candidates again. Sergio Marconi is expected to replace Luca di Montezemolo as the new president of Scuderia Ferrari. Maurizio Arrivabene replaced Stefano Domenicali as the new sports director of the Scuderia. Sebastian Vettel replaced Fernando Alonso as the top driver who left a team that gave him 4 world titles to emulate his hero, the German Michael Schumacher. Arriving at Ferrari in the midst of a restructuring, leading the project and winning several titles with them. And in 2017 and 2018, Ferrari had the weapons to stand up to Mercedes and return to glory. But the same team and Sebastian Vettel would take care of self-destructing all their opportunities. Constant failures, the constant mistakes, the fury of the Tifosi, and the death of Sergio Marchionne had provoked the need for another internal restructuring. John Elkann, an American, is now the president of Scuderia Ferrari. Maurizio Arrivabene, seen as the main reason for the lack of success, would be dismissed from the team and replaced by Mattia Binotto. But these changes also raised a huge question. Who would now drive the red single-seaters? Vettel was always Arrivabene's protege, and he even gave Vettel preference in choosing his teammates. He consistently favored Räikkönen, who rarely challenged him, and defeating him was typically a mere formality rather than a genuine challenge. Before his death, Sergio Marchionne saw potential in a boy, and wished for his name to be linked to the future of his beloved team. Charles Leclerc, a boy from Monaco. A young motorsports prodigy who dominated every championship he entered, and who had arrived at Formula One in 2018 with the help of the Alfa Romeo team. Following Marchionne's death, Scuderia Ferrari's new director sought to honor their former boss's final request. In 2019, Leclerc joined Scuderia Ferrari as a driver, facing the challenge of measuring up against a teammate who had been with the team since 2015. That was a 4-time world champion. Despite the overwhelming desire to beat him, Ferrari had slightly restrained him, saying that, at least at the beginning of the season, Vettel would be the number 1 driver and Leclerc would be his number 2 driver. This was to prevent pointless battles that would cost points in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship if Ferrari continued competing with Mercedes for both titles. But the Monegasque refused to simply be Vettel's subordinate, and he knew that if he showed more speed than him, Ferrari would give him a chance to beat him, and even a chance to fight for the title. That unknowingly set the team on a painful path. Questionable decisions, but above all, a snowball that was on its way to the biggest ridicule in the history of this team. As the first race of the year approached, Ferrari appeared less competitive than Mercedes initially. However, in this initial classification, Vettel outperformed Leclerc. The first of their tensions occurred in this very first Grand Prix. Vettel had no chance to fight for the win, and Max Verstappen would even take the podium from him during the race. Suddenly, he couldn't respond and counterattack the Red Bull driver. But he started slowing down, and Leclerc, coming fast with only a few laps left, caught up to him. And for several laps, he would stay behind him, with more speed and pace. But Ferrari had given him the explicit order not to attack his teammate, and he ended up simply turning behind him until the end of the race. And despite not being able to beat him, he had shown that he could be as fast as him and would not be willing to endure much more, being simply his squire. He came to prove a point, and in the next Grand Prix of the season, he made it quite clear. The very Grand Prix was next. Ferrari regained its competitiveness, achieving a 1-2 in qualification, led by the driver from Monaco, who took more than 2/10 of a difference from his teammate. A display of his potential and speed. But they were perfect for him to prove to his team that he deserved to compete on equal terms against the German, not as a number 2 driver. But Vettel refused to give up easily in this game. Verstappen quickly snatched the lead at the start of the Grand Prix, while Leclerc fell to third behind Valtteri Bottas. But, as I told you, this guy came from showing a point, and during the following laps he would chase his rival to overtake him on lap number 6. An overtaking move with a taste of, "I'm better than you." An overtaking move where Vettel had been beaten by the pace of his teammate. But for him, things were about to get much worse than they already were. On lap 38, Hamilton furiously attacked his former title rival. But by attacking him on turn number 4, Vettel had once again made a very serious and gross mistake. Again, he had lost control of the car, practically repeating the actions for which he lost the world title in 2018, making it clear that the ghosts of his poor performance were still there. And at this point, many people, even the Tifosi themselves, were asking a question. How do you intend to lead a team if you can't even control your car? And thanks to this huge mistake, now everyone was looking towards the future, and above all, to who was comfortably and pleasurably leading that competition. Leclerc had already made his point. He had shown what he wanted, and it was only up to Ferrari if they would give him the same treatment as Sebastian Vettel. He was about to win the Grand Prix, but a power unit issue suddenly shattered his dream. And what seemed like the first victory, dressed in red, it would turn into a simple podium, which is an excellent result. But seeing what he was about to achieve, he knows absolutely nothing. But as I told you, he had already proven his point, both to his rivals and his teammate, as well as his team, and the whole world had also noticed. After this competition, Hamilton and Mercedes activated invincible mode, chaining a streak of 5 consecutive race victories starting from Bahrain. This had left a monstrous difference between Hamilton and the rest of his pursuers, long before reaching the middle of the season. Everything suggests there would be no fight for the title. The internal fight in Ferrari turned into a duel for leadership of the prancing horse team, rather than a battle for the title. Leclerc struggled to prove his superiority over Vettel in a duel that spanned multiple races, and Vettel trying to bring his teammate down a peg. Both would battle with immense bravery to emerge from 2019 as the team's undisputed leaders. Neither was willing to be the other's squire, and they wanted to prove it on the track. However, after the summer break, the battle exploded, marking the official beginning of Ferrari's downfall. After the summer break, the Belgian Grand Prix was next. A race that seemed to be a formality for Mercedes, due to their overwhelming dominance in previous months, but where Ferrari would surprise, reaching the Ardennes Forest Circuit with an exceptionally fast car. A car with which Charles Leclerc set a pole time 7.5 tenths faster than the time set by Lewis Hamilton. An incredible feat at that point in the season, making Red Bull and Mercedes take notice, because they believed it was impossible that the gain obtained came from legal methods. And both Helmut Marko and Christian Horner would start making statements to the press saying that they did not believe the Ferrari engine was legal. They would also seek explanations about it. However, all of that faded into the background. Charles Leclerc would soon suffer a severe moral blow due to what would happen a few hours later, because his close childhood friend, Antoine Hubert, died from injuries sustained in a Formula 2 racing accident. His face turned from joy to sadness after a fantastic pole position. He had lost a loved one, right on the stage, where a day later the cars would have to go back into action to continue with another round of the big circus. But far from demotivating him, he now had the hunger not only to achieve his first Formula One victory, but also to dedicate it to his great friend. During the race, he faced a fierce battle in the final laps against a furious Lewis Hamilton, who aimed to snatch the victory. Would he withstand the onslaught? And after 44 laps, where he was superior to his competitors, he would achieve his long-awaited first victory in Formula One. A bittersweet victory, but he had managed to dedicate it to his friend. And above all, to achieve Ferrari's first victory of the season. Vettel missed an achievement at the Canadian Grand Prix, putting him in a very bad situation. He noticed the team leadership gradually shifting from him to his teammate. And those of us who know Vettel's racing career know that his worst enemy is pressure. And when he has a teammate who stands up to him, his driving gets worse and his mistakes increase. In Italy, he now had the obligation to be the architect of a victory for Ferrari. But the pressure was already there, and things risked getting out of control. And along with his teammate in fire mode. This was just the recipe for the total self-destruction of a four-time world champion named Sebastian Vettel. His teammate secured pole position in qualifying. At his people's home, the National at Monza racetrack roared loudly, watching as one of their own defeated the all-powerful Mercedes. But Vettel could only manage to finish in fourth position. He would have much work ahead to achieve the victory he eagerly awaited and redeem his image before his people. During the start, it might not be a big deal, but on lap 6, the morale of the four-time champion would be completely shattered.
Vettel is gone. Vettel is gone. Sorry, Chacho. Vettel is gone. And there was Stroll when Vettel returned to the track.
Again, once more, he would make a very rude and inexplicable mistake, spinning out alone in the Ascari chicane. And, as if that wasn't enough, he returned to the track in an inexplicable way, causing a collision with Lance Stroll. And in the Canadians' words, the German returned to the circuit like a complete idiot. This series of actions resulted in a 10-second stop and go penalty, abruptly ending his chances of winning. Worse yet, he abandoned his teammate with 2 sharks drawn to his blood. During the race, Hamilton attacked at the first opportunity, but Leclerc defended tenaciously, blocking every overtaking attempt. After several laps trying, and with many failed attempts, Hamilton would give up, and now it was Bottas who would go for the win. But the result remained the same. And after titanically enduring the onslaught, and after 53 laps of pure suffering, Leclerc prevailed at the Temple of Speed, and after nearly 10 years, he gifted his fans a home victory with a Ferrari. While he was winning in the best place to do so as a member of the Prancing Horse, Vettel was leaving through the back door, knowing that his big mistake had cost him much more than a simple victory. For the Tifosi, it was evident they had a new favorite and leader. They believed Leclerc would accomplish what Vettel, Massa, and Alonso had failed to achieve. Ferrari, impressed by his performance, swiftly offered him an unprecedented 5-year contract to be their driver. Despite being seemingly abandoned by all, Sebastian Vettel refused to surrender without a final battle. Leclerc aimed to extend his dominant winning streak with a third victory in a venue suited for night racing, the Marina Bay Street Circuit, located in Singapore. He secured his third pole position of the season, outperforming Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. At the Grand Prix start, he defended his first place in an unreachable start. In the initial laps, the gap between him, the British driver, and his teammate was under 3 seconds. He couldn't let his guard down or make a mistake. But in the heat of the battle, Ferrari would come up with a strategy that would set their young promise ablaze with rage. The Italians would make an early pit stop to undercut Hamilton and protect the victory, but the one chosen to stop first was Sebastian Vettel, not Leclerc. And with a minor difference among the 3 drivers vying for the win, it meant that after stopping, the driver of car number 5 would lead the Grand Prix. Immediately after Leclerc's stop, he was relegated to second place. Something that he didn't like at all, and didn't hesitate to complain to his team, as they had ruined the victory he had been working for. And this move ended up being crucial because Ferrari would order Leclerc not to attack his teammate and to finish the race marking the 1-2 they had been doing. But the one from Monaco kept on and on reproaching this action over the radio. Sebastian Vettel ultimately won the race, but Leclerc persisted in telling everyone that the outcome was unfair. To the extent that when the press asked Ferrari about the undercut, they admitted that they did it because Vettel needed that victory, and because they needed to recover the best version of their driver, and because they believed that the strategy would serve to secure the victory. However, Leclerc remained furious and frustrated, and one of his strongest statements was to reproach his team for the decision, arguing that you never undercut a teammate. But the damage was already done, and he would have to wait for Russia for the rematch and to get his third victory in Formula. And again, as had been happening since Belgium, Leclerc took pole position at the Sochi Autodrome, followed by Hamilton and Vettel. But the Russian circuit is a track where pole position is a huge disadvantage. Between the first place box and turn 1, there is a long straight where it's very easy to catch the slipstream of the car ahead. And this gave Hamilton a chance to go for the win and quickly attack Leclerc. Ferrari devised a pre-race plan to defend the lead and beat Hamilton at the start. That Leclerc would give suction to Vettel's single-seater so that he could overtake Hamilton and the Monegasque, and that eventually the German would return the position to his teammate. And that strategy would work perfectly, and they would execute it brilliantly. But when Vettel was supposed to give back the position, he wouldn't do it. He claimed there was a significant gap between him and Leclerc, and that reducing speed so drastically for an extended period would be very dangerous. Despite repeated team radio requests to yield his position, he refused until Leclerc drew nearer. This, of course, infuriated him, as he blamed his teammate for not complying with their agreement. Before the start of the race, when he did keep his word to give Vettel a tow. But the laps kept going, and the German kept putting more and more distance between them. What first appeared to be a great act of defiance revealed the rebellious side of the German, who refused to follow team orders. In response to this, Ferrari decided to stop Leclerc first in the pits, so that when Vettel stopped, he would retake the lead of the Grand Prix. And by doing so, the exchange would go exactly as the Italians planned. But laps later, Vettel would suffer an engine failure that would force him to retire from the Grand Prix. He would park the car in an inconvenient area of the track, causing the appearance of a virtual safety car due to his problem. Mercedes took advantage of this to stop Hamilton, allowing him to storm into the lead of the Grand Prix upon exiting the pits. This action was questioned by many people who believed that Vettel had parked there on purpose to ruin his teammate's race. After what happened in the pit lane, many referred to his notable history of rebellion, like with the Multi-21. This exact sequence of events would cost Ferrari the victory. And Hamilton had achieved an important victory towards achieving his 6th world title. But on Ferrari's part, it had already generated grudges within the team, and the situation was becoming quite tense. Even more so with the news that the Italians would be investigated in response to the claims from Red Bull and Mercedes about the suspicious speed that their engine had developed, which had the hostile Italians very much on the defensive and where their image was being seriously affected. And the last thing they needed at that moment was a fight between the two members of their team. But like two fighting dogs, they could no longer be nice to each other. And at the Brazilian Grand Prix, they would battle again with great intensity, but taking things too far and to an obvious point of no return. The final straw had been reached. Both took this fight to the extreme and broke the biggest rule that exists in a racing team: never hit your teammate. But the problem is that despite Ferrari's politically correct statements, they internally blamed Vettel for the accident. The team was exasperated with Vettel's mistakes, rebellion, and how he escalated the situation, resulting in a complete fallout between him and Ferrari. But all of this had further infuriated Mattia Binotto, who was about to not only get even, but to turn his life into a real hell. And as if that wasn't enough, at the end of the championship, Leclerc beat his teammate in the driver's standings. But ladies and gentlemen, as for me, I end this story here. But don't worry, Arturo from Enel Paddock will take care of the rest. And I can assure you that the outcome of this story will not disappoint you. The second part will be on the Enel Paddock channel, so smash the like button on this video. I'll see you in the next part of this story. Has Skyline Racing and Arturo spoken to you? I leave the rest in your hands.